Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. First, let me say my prayers go out to Charr. He got shot, according to some reports, multiple times. I personally believe that his fight against Vitaly Klitschko was closer than press reports suggested. I thought that fight was prematurely stopped. I thought Diamond Boy was a pretty good heavyweight, and you just hate to see something like this happen. Let's hope he makes a very full recovery and that he's able to continue his career if he chooses. Let me also say, too, with regard to Joel Diaz splitting with Timothy Bradley. You know, as a gambler, I like continuity. I like predictability. I need to know that if a fighter gets buzzed, like Bradley's been buzzed in a few fights, right? The Kendall Holt fight, I encourage people to revisit that fight. The Richland Provodnikov fight. I need to know that when he goes to the corner, his corner has his back. That there are guys in the corner who are gonna give him great advice, get him back on track, remind the fighter of the game plan and who he is. And I thought Timothy Bradley had all of that in Joel Diaz, right? Now, I understand the guys have split for whatever reason. I'm not here to say who's to blame for what or what have you, but let's just say if you're a guy like me who likes to bet on Timothy Bradley, this is a cause for concern. Understand, Diaz used to be the trainer for his brother, Julio Diaz, who I thought was one of the more intriguing fighters out there. Gave some tough opponents, Sean Porter, for example. Very tough fights, right? And I thought Joel Diaz added a lot to multiple corners, right? So I believe Timothy Bradley's going to have a very hard time replacing a trainer of this skill level. And certainly he's not going to be able to replace the rapport that he had with Joel Diaz that was built up over several years, right? If you're a Bradley guy, you need to keep a close eye on this situation because, quite frankly, the water's very deep in 147 and 154, right? Bradley doesn't have too much of a margin for error. Let me also say this too. In this story, it's pointed out that Bradley has a female manager, right? I'm someone who completely supports diversity. And boxing, again, is leading the way. Understand, the outfit Main Events is a predominantly female outfit. You have female promoters. You also have other female managers in boxing with marquee fighters. Steve Cunningham has a female manager. Shane Mosley used to have a female manager, right? Just know that Timothy Bradley's manager is female. Let me say, too, the same hesitation I have with the Timothy Bradley-Joel Diaz split, that's the same hesitation I have with the Johnny Gonzalez-Nacho Beristain split, right? Because both Gonzalez and Bradley in fights have gotten a little bit off track, right? What exactly was Timothy Bradley trying to accomplish in that Manny Pacquiao rematch, right? To hear that both of these guys had excellent trainers and now are changing trainers after long-time relationships gives me pause, right? I will say this, though. It's true that sometimes it works out for the better. I believe one of the big secrets to Miguel Cotto's success is his business relationship with Freddie Roach, right? Freddie Roach has rejuvenated his career. So we'll see what happens. I just thought, though, that Bradley was doing well. He wasn't at the point in his career where he needed rejuvenation. So this is a little bit of a cause for concern for me. Finally, let me close by saying this. Shannon Briggs fights Mike Marrone. Understand, Mike Marrone is coming off of a 6-round fight against a guy with 10 wins and 11 losses, where Marrone had to win a split decision. Understand, Mike Marrone, that 6-round fight, that's his only fight since not 2013, not 2012. That's his only fight since 2011. If you look at films of Mike Marrone too, you're going to notice Mike Marrone is a guy who, is on his front foot, right? He's going to try to bring action. Now, Shannon Briggs is older. Shannon Briggs, quite frankly, has been fighting guys who, as I like to say, are in witness protection, so to speak, right? You never heard of them before, many of these fights, right? I don't know at this point if Shannon Briggs is for real. So I believe the play, since the fight, according to BoxRec, a great site, is supposed to be a 12-round fight, I believe the play on the Shannon Briggs-Mike Marrone fight is to take both guys by KO. Because I'm not sure if either guy is capable of even being upright after the 10th round, and it's supposed to be a 12-round fight, right? So I believe this fight ends well inside of the distance. I'm not sure on his side, even though Briggs is heavily favored, right? What I think I'm sure of, based on styles, is that somebody is going to get stopped. Let me back up, too, and say this. One of the more intriguing fights I've seen. If you want to see Briggs against a heavyweight who I consider to be a great heavyweight, who I thought was legit. When I criticize heavyweights here online, when I talk about Deontay Wilder and say, hey, he's still working to get there. If you want to see a guy who I consider to be there, right, I want you to go back and look at the film of Lennox Lewis against Shannon Briggs, right? Both men, in my opinion, are at their best in that fight. Both men. Now, let me say this, and it'll shock some people, but, the history of the heavyweight division could have changed in the first round of that Lennox Lewis-Shannon Briggs fight. Now, you remember Lewis having rough moments against Oliver McCall, right? Lewis famously gets stopped in that fight. You might recall Lewis having tough moments against Hasim Rahman. He got stopped in that fight. You might recall Lewis having tough moments against Vitaly Klitschko. Great fight. Lewis wins that fight and then retires. But one of the big rounds of Lewis's career, in terms of tough moments, one of the toughest moments he had in a very intriguing fight was the first round against Shannon Briggs. I'm going to try to post this fight in my favorites folder here on YouTube. I encourage everyone to look at that round. Lewis comes out, gets hit with a nice left hand by Shannon Briggs. Let me point out that it should have counted as a knockdown. You have a great ref, Frank Cappuccino, right? Lewis falls into the ropes, literally staggers into the ropes. He's clearly hurt. The first round is clearly a Shannon Briggs round. The only thing that holds Lewis up are the ropes. Had Cappuccino, the referee, been on his game, that would have counted as a knockdown. Let me point out, too, that it's not a lucky punch, because Briggs lands another big left hand in that first round. Briggs comes out in the second round and lands a big left hand. Now, one of the things with Lewis, and it's a frustrating part of the Lewis legacy, it's something that historians are just going to have to deal with, was that Lewis sometimes would come in the ring out of shape. Lewis would need breathers during fights, right? Lewis apparently was a guy who didn't really train that hard. Now, you look at Vladimir Klitschko, and the reason I'm mentioning Vladimir Klitschko is, Lewis was trained by Emanuel Stewart, who then, at the end of Lennox's career, started training Vladimir Klitschko. Saved Vladimir Klitschko's career, quite frankly, right? That's a situation where a trainer comes in and rejuvenates a fighter. Now, I'll say this. Vladimir Klitschko, much better athlete than Lennox Lewis. Because Klitschko keeps himself in shape between fights. I don't see Klitschko as winded after ordinary exchanges as I see Lewis. But I'll say this. To me, personally, skill-wise, talent-wise, it's not close. Lewis is more skilled than Vladimir Klitschko. You see it in this fight, right? Lewis looks out of shape. I'm not going to cut Lewis any favors. Lewis is in his 30s. Lewis looks out of shape to me. But you notice that Lewis in the third round, after a very rocky start, Lewis in the third round starts showing off a Larry Holmes level jab. You notice that Lewis's right hand is dynamite. In a fight against Shannon Briggs, understand, Briggs' nickname is Shannon the Cannon. It's clear that the puncher is Lennox Lewis. Right? So there is Lewis, and Lewis, has a great left hook. Literally, he has the Emmanuel Stewart tools. Right? He has a jab, he has a left hook, he has a straight right hand, but you can tell he's less scripted than Vladimir Klitschko. You can tell, too, that Lewis's right hand gets there faster. Right? Now, Shannon Briggs tries to hold his own. Of course, he's fighting Lennox Lewis, a great heavyweight. So he gets dropped a couple of times in the fourth round. Then we get to the fifth round, and you know the rest. Even though Shannon Briggs, after a fast start where he should have gotten credited for a knockdown in round one, where he comes out in round two and he's looking good. Of course, by the fifth round, it's a foregone conclusion. Lewis just has, even an out-of-shape Lewis, just has too many skills, right? He drops Briggs once. Briggs gets up. It's a miracle he gets up. Then he drops Briggs again. The referee has seen enough. You understand, at that point, the ref's doing Briggs, who wants to continue, a favor, right? I believe the reason why Shannon Briggs is continuing the fight, other than, of course, the millions of dollars that being heavyweight champion would get him, is because he understands that there are no Lennox Lewises at heavyweight. Right? I think he might be wrong about that. I do feel privately that Tyson Fury has incredible upside. Right? But I'll say this. I know Shannon Briggs feels that Deontay Wilder and Lennox Lewis don't belong in the same sentence. Right? I know Shannon Briggs. And keep in mind, Briggs fought Foreman. Right? I would say Briggs lost that fight. The judges disagree. Okay, fair enough. Right? But Briggs fought Foreman. Briggs fought Lewis. I'm guessing Briggs feels he's seen much more than he would see against Deontay Wilder. Right? And I'll say this too. Vladimir Klitschko, to me, is vulnerable. Right? I don't think Vladimir Klitschko is gonna smile like Lennox Lewis does in the fourth round after getting hit with some big shots from Shannon Briggs and then proceed to dole out punishment like Lennox Lewis did. Right? I'll say this, if Lennox Lewis just took his fitness a bit more seriously, we would really be, saying, gee, this guy, put it this way, his reputation would be even bigger than it is. And it's clear to me that, Lennox Lewis is one of the best heavyweights in history as it is. Let's remember, Lennox Lewis did destroy Mike Tyson. I know that wasn't the Mike Tyson. That wasn't the Tyson of the 80s. Right? But understand, Lennox Lewis did go to Catskills privately and spar with prime Mike Tyson. And Lewis left that sparring session feeling that he could beat Tyson. That was Tyson in his prime. right? The problem with Lewis was just that there were nights where the first Hasim Rahman night, right? This Shannon Briggs night. There were nights where Lewis comes in the ring and he's lackadaisical. He's uninspired. He's out of shape, right? Shannon Briggs roughs him up early. So Lennox Lewis literally gets on his game. That fight doesn't make it to the 6th round, right? If you want to see what I consider to be legit, take a look at Lennox Lewis against Shannon Briggs, right? That's a legit heavyweight, right? That's a heavyweight, quite frankly, who would do a lot of damage today. Anyway, I don't believe the Shannon Briggs-Mike Marrone fight goes the distance. I get the feeling you don't either. The bet I'm recommending is a distance bet, not a side. I think you should take both guys by KO. Don't fool around with over-unders, because you don't know how active the fighters are going to be. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.